Since 1994, the Afrikaner right wing seemed to have disappeared off the scene. Then last year, the Boeramag bombed their way back into the headlines, and suddenly the white right was South Africa's primary security threat. Maybe we'd been lulled into thinking the right wing had disappeared because most Afrikaners embraced the new South Africa. Since 1994, there have been a number of violent incidents by a small group of people who seem intent on establishing an ethnic Afrikaner state in South Africa. On Christmas Eve 1996, a bomb explodes in a supermarket in Worcester. A group called the Boere Aanvalstroepe claims responsibility for the blast, which kills 4 people and injures 60. They demand the release of what they call Boer freedom fighters and that Boers be granted their own territory. 2 right-wingers are later arrested on a remote farm where they've been preparing for their war. Literature found at the house links them to a religious sect, the Israelites. They believe the Afrikaners are among God's chosen people. A 3rd accomplice is later extradited from Namibia. They are sentenced to 88 years in jail. In early 1997, a group of 12 right-wingers are arrested while trying to steal weapons and military equipment from a Pomfret military base in the Northern Province. They call themselves the Pretoria Boer Commando. Their leader is well-known right-winger Willem Rutte. He's a higher-ranking ex-Special Forces member of the old SADF. Rutte is sentenced to 7 years in prison. This was not Rutte's first stint in prison, though, for right-wing activities. A year earlier, he'd been released from prison on bail after a hunger strike. On the day of his release, he's welcomed by a crowd displaying the old South African flag and those of the Boer republics. They call him Commandant, a military title from the old Boer army. In May 1998, a group of men break into the Tempi Army base in Bloemfontein. Over 100 weapons, including machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, mortars and night vision equipment, are stolen. 2 weeks later, the same group rob a Tempi Army truck. They murder the black occupants and make off with machine guns and ammunition worth millions of rands. 4 men are arrested and tried for theft, robbery and murder. They're alleged to be members of a new organization called Die Volk. There are indications that the 4 are also members of the right-wing religious sect, the Israel Identity. They are all sentenced to long terms. Then in March 2002, 3 men are arrested on a small holding near Parijs in the Vaal Triangle. They are charged with sabotage. They'd planned to blow up the Vaal Dam. Like the Worcester bombers and the Tempi killers, they are also followers of a right-wing sect, this time a splinter group of the Israel Vision. They say they are fighting for a Boer state. The leader says the Bible and the visions of an old Boer prophet, Singer van Rensburg, justified his actions. He'd hoped to spark a Boer rebellion against the government. But a year earlier, the activities of another group, the Boeramag, had started coming to light. In May 2001, the first 3 Boeramag members are arrested. Among them, Michael de Tooy. He's a lecturer at Vista University and has a master's degree in philosophy. Police seize a crucial document from his house. It's called Document 12 and is a military plan. It's alleged de Tooy is the author and a mastermind of the planned coup. In September last year, the police say they've uncovered a Boeramag plan to bomb the Sustainable Development Summit in Johannesburg. Later the same month, they find a truck parked in the industrial area of Lichtenburg in the northwest province. It's packed with ammunition, petrol bombs, food, military and medical equipment.
To make it stick to that target. Small arms ammunition.
There are also a number of neo-Nazi badges. Police believe the truck must have served as a mobile headquarters in the event of a conflict.
Jeez. Where would you get hold of that truck? Only the military uses it.
So these here
Commissioner, I'll come to that now. Yes, electric detonators.
During this time, the Boeramach sends a letter to the media informing them of a state of war. Shortly afterwards, an arms cache is found at a farm near Modimolle in Limpopo province. This includes large amounts of explosive material, bomb canisters and ammunition. The police now admit that the Boeramach is a bigger threat than initially thought, and a more accurate profile of the people involved is emerging.
The worrying thing about this grouping is that there are very young people who have been used in this process. It's a worrying thing. It is also a worrying thing that it's not your clapdraft and coke type of grouping. It's quite an educated group of people. People with high standards of education.
In October, 8 bombs explode in Soweto. Another explodes in Bronkhorst Strait. In November, a bomb damages the police aerial wing at Grand Central Airport in Midrand. In December, the police intercept a bucky packed with explosives. They believe the intended target was a soccer match in Pretoria. The police hunt intensifies. By the end of the year, 23 members of the Boeramach have been rounded up. This includes the other alleged commander, Ton Foster. The charges against them range from treason to terrorism and sabotage. This was one of their alleged plans. First, a Boer army is established. Secondly, chaos is created and 4,000 men are mobilized countrywide. Then the electricity is cut in Bloemfontein and Gauteng. Traitors are eliminated and radio stations taken over. Army and police bases are also taken over. Jailed right-wingers are freed. All blacks and Indians are driven towards KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal is then bombed to force them out of South Africa altogether. Then a Boer Republic is declared.
What is it that made a small group of men think they could start a war in South Africa and win? Well, the answer might lie here on the plains of the Northwest Province, because it's here where the spirit of an old Boer prophet still roams. Siener van Rensburg lived in the district of Wolmaranstad. He died in 1926, but during his lifetime he had many visions that he said foreshadowed things to come. And it's now emerging that the members of the Boeramach looked to the prophecies of Siener van Rensburg for guidance and inspiration. Some years ago, Special Assignment broadcast a program on Siener van Rensburg. Let's take a look at what it said.
His name was Nicholas van Rensburg. His friends simply called him Siener. This is his story. Who was Siener van Rensburg? How accurate have his prophecies been in the past? What did he say about the world at the turn of the millennium? What did he see for South Africa as we enter the 21st century? Born in 1864 in the district of Wolmaranstad in the West Transvaal, his full name was Nicolaas Pieter Johannes Janse van Rensburg. In this program, we will call him by the name he was commonly known as, Die Siener. It means the seer, a man who could prophesy the future. Siener was an apocalyptic prophet of his people. His visions are couched in the searing language of the prophets of the Old Testament. The images in which they came to him often match the frightening symbolism of the visions of John in the book of Revelation. His prophecies are steeped in his unshakable faith in the God of Israel, the God of the Afrikaner nation. Of himself he said, I am only a messenger from God.
Die Here is mijn herder. My sal niets ontbreken.
The only book he ever read was the Bible. He read it by spelling each word separately, as he had been taught by his mother.
Aan zeer stille wateren. Hy verkoekt mijn ziel. Hy leidt my
This is the copy behind his home where, early in the mornings, he used to climb to the top. Here, alone with his Bible, he had most of his visions. In later years, he dictated what he saw to his daughter, Anna van Rensburg. Sitting in the voorkamer with her father, she wrote down the prophecies in the school exercise books of the time.
Ek sien 'n swart gordyn in die verre toekoms. Maar vir ons wat weet, sal dit nie so donker wees nie. Die Here se hand sal wees op ons volk. Ek sien die vuurkleur wapper weer. Ek sien 'n nuwe republiek.
These are the original books of Anna van Rensburg, in which she wrote down her father's visions. There are more than 700 recorded prophecies of Cinna van Rensburg. We can only look at a fraction of them. Visions relating to the past, the present, and the future. In 1899, the darkest days in Afrikaner history rolled across the republics of the Old Transvaal and the Orange Free State. The Anglo-Boer War. Like so many other Boere, Cinna left his wife and children on the farm and joined the commando of the legendary General Koos de la Rey of Lichtenburg, the Lion of the West Transvaal. It is said that Cinna never carried a gun, and that he never shot anyone. He joined up to be the voice of God for the fighting Boers, always guiding, consoling, protecting. Throughout the war, his timely visions saved many commanders from being captured or killed. Cinna van Rensburg saw the future in the symbols of his time. For instance, a thatched house was the Boer parliament. A man without his hat meant death. It was the prophecy of the death of General Koos de la Rey, the man without the hat, that immortalized Nicolaas Cinna van Rensburg as the greatest prophet the Afrikaner nation had ever had. On Saturday, July the 11th, 1914, shortly before the start of the First World War, the Cinna unexpectedly visited de la Rey on his farm near Lichtenburg. De la Rey was on his way to negotiate with the Union government to try to prevent a rebellion by the Boers opposed to South Africa joining Britain in the war. The Cinna came to warn de la Rey of a vision he'd had. He implored him not to go to Pretoria. This vision was recorded by de la Rey's daughter, Polly, who was present when Cinna spoke to her father. I see a white paper with the numbers 1 and 5 on it. The white paper with the black 15 hangs over Lichtenburg. Then I see you, and you are without your hat. I see night falling. A black cloth of mourning hangs over the town. I see a long wagon pulled by steam. Many steam wagons. I see a commando on horseback arriving from Schweizer Reneke. They sleep in the open. It is not war. I see flowers, flowers everywhere.
Oom moet versigtig wees asseblief.
Two months after the Cinna's visit, General Koos de la Rey leaves for Johannesburg on September the 14th. He checks in at the Victoria Hotel. At reception, he collects the key to his room. He is given room 15. On Tuesday evening, September the 15th, he departs with General Beyers for a crisis meeting in Potchefstroom. They travel by car. In La Lachte, they run into a roadblock set up by the police to catch the notorious Foster gang. A shot rings out. De la Rey is killed. The Lion of the West is no more. 40 special trains ran to Lichtenberg for his funeral. The commando arrived from Schweizer Reneke. The folk mourned the passing of one of the greatest of the old Boer generals. Everything happened just as Sinne van Rensburg had prophesied. In an uncanny vision that spans the whole of Afrikaner history, he then sees the fall of the Afrikaners led by a man who came from Vereeniging, the same place where the Boers were forced to sign the humiliating peace treaty with Britain after the Anglo-Boer War.
Wil ek graag hulde bring aan my voorganger.
I see a wagon wheel rolling in from the Eastern Cape. At first it follows a winding road. Then it finds a straight path. It loses a spoke. Then it loses its rim. Slowly it becomes a new wheel. The wheel rolls on to Vereeniging, to the petrol factory, and there it stops, topples, and lies still. The mention of a petrol factory is startling in this vision. In Sinne's time, cars were few and far between. The oil and petrol from coal complex at Sasol near Vereeniging was built in 1950. The rest of the prophecy is explained by scholars as follows. The wagon wheel rolling from the Eastern Cape is the Great Trek. It follows a winding path. Then, as the Boer republics are formed, it runs a straight course. The losing of the spokes and rim is symbolic of British intervention, the Anglo-Boer War, and subsequent loss of power by the Afrikaners. The new wheel points to the Afrikaners establishing the Republic in 1961.
Whatever the cost.
All reasonable people.
De Klerk was MP for Vereeniging when he came to power. His first speech as president was made there. He is the one who finally topples the wheel of the Afrikaners' rule. And then he fades from the scene.
My first public address after my inauguration as state president. I repeat that statement.
Shortly before his death in 1926, the Sinne talked about a recurring vision he'd had. I see a small, emaciated black boy rising up out of the earth. I see him grow into a mighty warrior. He rises up to his full stature from the earth. Above his head he lifts his assegai and shield up to the sky. His shadow falls across the whole of our land. This is far into the future. Then I see him vanish in a cloud. In these days, Sinne says, white racism will be on the increase all over the world, especially in Europe. For the Afrikaner nation, it will be a dark time when many forces will be aligned against it. But then, he says, the Afrikaners will rise again and regain their freedom. The nation will take their destiny into their own hands. There will be a great silence before the storm. I see a pail full of blood toppling, falling. And from the pail will rise the Vierkleur flag to fly again over a free nation. When will this happen? When people asked Sinne for dates, he simply said, the time and place is known only to the Lord. But there are some indicators. In 1916, he tells his friend, Boy Moosman, there will come a time when I will be once again in the news. In those days, I see we are still fighting amongst ourselves. Then it is over, and we will have a black government. It is then that the Afrikaners' final and fiercest struggle will begin.
There is no doubt in my mind that he had an exceptional gift.
Ek glo
Hy was definitief 'n profeet van God.
There is so much historical evidence in terms of the historical manifestation or realization of his visions, that there is no doubt that he was an amazing figure.
En ek dink baie mense verstaan sy boodskap verkeerd. Dit is hoekom ek dink die dinge onlangs wat nou gebeur het met van die mense, dat hulle sy gesigte verkeerd vertolk het.
The book of Nostradamus is well known, that the revelations in the New Testament of the Christian Bible is well known, and I think Siener van Rensburg's visions should also be placed in this category of apocalyptic or revelatory visions. And if you want to create a dream world, you can use these books or these writings because they are written in mythical and poetical language.
We don't yet know to what extent the visions of Siener van Rensburg influenced the Boeramag thinking, or if they thought their actions were fulfilling those prophecies. One state witness has suggested it did play a role, and on the very face of it there are interesting parallels between some of the Boeramag's alleged plans and events outlined in some of the seers' visions. One of the Boeramag's plans is to guard the railway line between Prieska and Luderitz. No explanation is given, yet these towns have great significance in a vision of Siener van Rensburg.
Hy sê die wapens wat ons gaan haal sal met skepe na Prieska toe kom.
Lichtenberg also features. Last year, letters are sent to various people urging them to gather at the Lichtenberg Commando for the declaration of a Boer Republic. Again, Siener has significance.
En op 'n koppie noord van Lichtenberg, het hy gesê, sal 'n man in 'n bruin pak klere die volk tot bedaring bring. Hy sal hulle kry want daar's baie aggressie en ek weet nie wat die omstandighede sal wees nie, maar hy sal hulle tot bedaring bring en hy sal die leiding oorneem.
Then there's of course the alleged plan to drive black and Indian people to KwaZulu-Natal, and once there they are to be violently driven from this province too.
Maar hy het gesê hy sien hulle vlug Durban toe en hulle word agterna gesit en wanneer hulle op die skepe in Durban is, dan word daar nog op hulle geskiet, dan trek hulle weg.
And then there's the final step. After the bombing of KwaZulu-Natal, a Boer Republic is to be established.
En as die burgers wat die vyand verdryf het van Durban af terugkom, dan kry ek 'n nuwe paar velskoene, 'n nuwe saal en 'n nuwe toom. Dit beteken 'n permanente regering en 'n heel nuwe begin.
Scholars agree on the historical importance of the seer, but they differ on the interpretation of his visions. When he saw freedom for the Afrikaner, did he mean they should take up arms?
Dit gaan nie werk nie. Hy het ook gesê dit sal misluk, jy weet.
Many of these individualistic interpretations have, over the time, proved themselves to be not true, because they were forced into another historical paradigm or context.
So people feel threatened, and it's not unnatural that such, or unusual, I should rather say, that in such circumstances people think that they can re-establish the old order. You see, what's nice about the past, it's so certain.
Siener van Rensburg's message was, well, we're going to experience times of crisis. We're going to have wars. There's going to be a rebellion. There's going to be economic catastrophes. But through all of this, we must rely on God and His Word. That was his message.
Afrikaners have progressively lost their previous positions of power and privilege. An environment has been created for alienated groups of people to try and regain what they've lost. This, with religion and a history of separateness, makes for a lethal cocktail.
So long as the principle of Afrikaner self-determination is not adequately addressed, phenomena like these will come more prevalent.
In the main, whites have changed, and they have accepted the new circumstances. And therefore, groups like this is bad news to white people, and especially to Afrikaans people.
The Boeramag trial was postponed again yesterday, but it will be here at the Palace of Justice in Pretoria, where the 22 right-wingers will eventually come face to face with the justice system of the government they allegedly wanted to overthrow.
The answer